So I was pretty darn excited when I saw that Rise Garden was starting to carry microgreens. Now, at this point, that is not new news, but this is the first time that I'm actually going to be growing them. And like everything on this channel, you know I'm going to turn it into an experiment. For my research, I started watching a pant load of microgreens videos to see how people normally grow them, because I wanted to see if there were any methods or tips or anything that I could take and adapt into how I'm going to grow them in my personal Rise garden. And of course, I want to be able to share the results of this experiment with you guys. So if you are just here for the experiment, then you can go ahead and jump to this timestamp right here and get right into the fun of this. But if you are new to microgreens and you want to know a little bit more about what they are, then we'll go ahead and get started there. If you're new here, then I should probably introduce myself. I am Kiri, and I just love growing food hydroponically. So let's talk about what microgreens actually are. So microgreens are baby plants. They are not the same thing as sprouts, and they are also not the same thing as baby greens. Sprouts are more immature, and they tend to be harvested in about 2 to 7 days, and the baby greens are going to be more mature than the microgreens, and they're harvested later on. The microgreens are usually harvested when they get to about 1 to 3 centimeters in height, which is 2.5 to 7.5 centimeters. But one of the best things about microgreens is they are super easy. Like, I mean, total noob grower. You can grow these things. First of all, they're harvested in 7 to 14 days, so there isn't a lot of time to kill them if you think you have a black thumb, which you don't. This makes them absolutely perfect for a new tentative gardener who just wants to try something out. But that is not the only reason to grow microgreens. There's something that can pretty easily be grown year-round, whether it is in a hydroponic system or on a windowsill or under a grow light. On top of being super easy to grow, they are chock full of flavor and nutrients. But wait, there's more. They also have phytonutrients and antioxidants. Like, these things kind of sound like the superheroes of the plant world. They are flavorful, nutrient dense, and super easy to grow. At this point, the question should be, why aren't you growing them? And when I say nutrient dense, these things can have like 6 times the nutrients that you would get in the adult version of the same plant. Not a different plant, the same one. First thing you need to know is that microgreens are not special seeds. These are the exact same seeds that you would plant and grow into an adult version of plant, either hydroponically or outdoors in the garden. The difference here is we're going to be harvesting them before they are anywhere close to mature, right after the cotyledons have formed, which are their first leaves, not the true leaves, but the first leaves. And we're going to grow them really densely because itty bitty little babies. So we need a lot of them if we're going to get anything if we're harvesting when they're that young. So any seeds you have kicking around you could use for microgreens, but when you tend to do microgreens, because you need so many, you're going to get the seeds in bulk. A normal seed package really wouldn't give you all that much. Even the way that they come in Rise Garden is different. So these are my broccoli microgreens. I also have some lemon basil microgreens that I'm going to be growing. I'm going to be doing both of them as part of this experiment. I haven't even opened the lemon basil yet. We open them up so they come in this big tray, and you're going to get, how many is in here? 12 of them. And they just come in like this. So one thing that's different about these is you'll see the donut, the hole in the center is really, really big. And that's because this thing is chock full of seeds so that we can get anything in terms of a harvest out of there. So I'm going to very carefully lift this off and attempt to not dump these absolutely everywhere. Hopefully you can see that in there. There are a lot of seeds. So if you were to look at a normal Rise Garden seed pod, I mean, the pod itself is the same. If you took off the foil and then looked inside, you're going to see a lot fewer seeds in a normal one because you're trying to grow those to maturity, and you're probably going to be thinning one of those, where this one, they just give you a bunch more seeds. That's the only difference. Rise Gardens has a couple of varieties to choose from. As I mentioned, I am doing the broccoli and the lemon basil. They also have a radish and a kohlrabi that you can get right now. But as I mentioned before, these are not special seeds. So if you had your own seeds that you prefer as a type of microgreen or whatever, you could be going and doing those in some of the seedless pods. So let's talk a little bit about why you might want to grow the microgreens in a Rise garden. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I watched a pant load of videos on growing microgreens, the more normal way to do them, which is in the big trays. Bootstrap Farmer has some great ones. I'll put a link to those in the description below for if you want to grow them at scale. Like, This is not how you start a microgreens business, people. Absolutely not. This is if you just want to try them out. Maybe you're not sure if you like microgreens, or you just want to have that pop of flavor for certain meals. This is not what you do if you are a microgreens aficionado, in my opinion, because you're just not going to get enough. This is if you want to throw them in a salad every now and then. This is more a matter of if you had some space or you're not ready to start another plant, you can just kind of pop these in wherever you have room in your garden and get that little burst of flavor and all those additional nutrients like I mentioned. This is another great thing that you could do if you have a raised garden, but you're thinking you want to grow microgreens like at scale. This would be a great way to just order one of these, test it out, see what you think before you commit to all that additional infrastructure to grow them more traditionally. There is nothing that says that you cannot just pop open the box, take one of these bad boys out, put it in your raised garden, and grow microgreens successfully. So now I'd like to explain how I'm going to conduct this experiment. I am going to grow 4 of the lemon basil, and I'm going to grow 4 of the broccoli. And we are going to use 4 different methods for growing, so 1 of each of them in each method. The first one, you're going to take your pod, pop it in, open it up, and just let it do its thing. For the second one is I'm going to put a humidity dome. I'm just using these 500 milliliter mason jars on that. The other way that I'm going to do it is using a darkened mason jar. I just spray painted this with some black spray paint because when I was watching all of those videos, some people were saying that they grow better when they are covered first and let to get started in the dark. So we'll see if that makes a difference. And for the last method, I am going to weight them down. There's some people that absolutely swear by this method. So I went into my son's Lego bin and I jimmy rigged these little things that I can put on top of the baskets. I had to do it because of the little nubs that stick up on the side. So I have a little piece at the bottom to press it down into it, and then it just kind of sits in there. And then I will just put a bottle of Thrive on top and then see if that works. I don't know if it's going to do anything. I don't even know if these are too deep or not deep enough, but I made 2 of them that were going to be the exact same depth. And we are going to do everything within our power to keep it the same because this is not a lab. I am not going to be using the nursery. And the reason for that is because I've got the humidity domes anyways. And a lot of the reasons that you would use the nursery is because you're going to get it started in here just with plain water, because when they're growing, they don't need the nutrients to begin with, but because these guys don't need nutrients at all, first of all, because they're going to be harvested in 14 days, so they don't got time for that. And because I am starting them in my raised garden, and that's all that's in there, I didn't put any nutrients in there, so I'm not going to be using this. Basically, the point of this whole shebang is to see, do I get a different yield between the easiest way of just popping them in and all these other somewhat more convoluted methods, to see maybe it's worth it if I get a whole bunch more when they're weighted or darkened, because I'm just curious about things like this. And if there's a way to grow more food that's not too much more complicated, I'm going to do it. Oh, and by the way, if you're going to be popping some of these microgreen pods in amongst other plants in a raised garden that's already set up and running, don't worry, the nutrients aren't going to hurt them. They just don't really need them. As I mentioned, we are going to be harvesting these in 14 days. So we will do the updates to see how things are changing because it's going to go pretty quick. So now we are ready to get planting. So I think we'll do the weighted, the darkened, the clear, and then over there the control, which I'm going to get them all popped in, and then I will take off all the foils at the end. So that's the broccoli in the front, and I'm just going to get all the broccolis in here. We'll leave the middle ones covered, and then lemon basil will go all the way at the back. But on the box, it will tell you this one is for the broccoli. It sprouts in about 3 days, and it's going to be harvested in 14. On the lemon basil, it says it's going to be ready for harvest within 17 days. To keep it equal, we're just going to do them both at 14 days. So now let's take these off. So I'm just going to use the nail file here to move the top. You can see just how many seeds are in there. Like, it is jam-packed. And I'll show you the basil in a second, but basil seeds do something a little weird that can freak people out. So I just want to explain it in case anyone hasn't seen it before. So here we have the lemon basil, and if we wait a second, they're going to look a little bit different. They're going to start getting this white milky film on them. It hasn't even been long, and you can see they're starting to get that milky look to them. This is pretty much the same thing like you see with chia. It is totally normal. Do not freak out. These ones at the end, the ones all the way at the barn, are going to be the ones I'm not going to do anything with. The second ones in are going to get these mason jars to act as humidity domes. The next ones are going to get these blackened out mason jars to see if that makes a difference. And then these ones on the end, I'm actually thinking this is way too big. I'm going to take some of this Lego apart. This will be the design we're going with. It's not going to push down too far, but it's going to give a little bit of pushing, so put that one there. Other one, pretty much the same, just the two little pieces. We'll put that on the basil seeds. So we have the 2 Thrive bottles on there, and then we'll check in a couple days. So day 2, and you can see on the one that's not covered, some of those little basil seeds are drying out, and the ones under the dome are all good. That's one thing that I think could make a difference if you don't have the humidity dome. If you were going to be starting them in the nursery, then you would be fine. The broccoli is already starting to sprout there. We've got under the humidity dome, we have some sprouting. In the darkness, say we actually have more sprouting there. Under the weighted, I don't see any sprouting. All right, so we are on day 5, and there are some interesting things to see. Lessons have already been learned. If I'm honest, I'm expecting over there, the weighted ones, to be a complete poop show because the Lego wasn't the best way to keep it weighted, but we'll see what happens. I have actually done this experiment once before, and then I lost some of the footage. So I'm interested to see if the results this time will align to what I saw the last time. So there we have the broccoli with no cover. It's looking okay. It's not horrible by any means. If we look over here at the basil with no cover though, it's a different story. Those seeds have really dried up. They had the gel on them to begin with, but without the ability of having that humidity there for them, they've dried up, formed almost like a cap. I mean, there's some of them that are germinating, but it ain't good. If we go over here to the broccoli with the cover, there's definitely more growing there, and it looks like we've got somebody that's upside down. You can see the roots there. A mold, that's some root hairs, so we'll have to sort that out, but they are looking good. The basil with the cover, I just took that off. Those are looking fantastic. We'll let those go without anything on them now because they're getting pretty big and they've already germinated. So we'll take off the dark dome. We can see those guys. I actually have a feeling there was, I don't know if you guys can see it, but there was a little bit where I didn't spray paint it as dark. So they were kind of leaning towards that side. They should straighten up. And then we'll go over here to the basil, the back. Definitely seems like there's more with the one that just had the humidity dome. Take off the Thrive. All right. Some people, they swear by this weighted method. I'm not sold in the least. Look at that. None have germinated really. All right, let's see what we got over here. I'll show you guys what's going on over there. They've got all their gel on them, so that's good. But again, 0 germination. So I'll leave these guys a little bit longer and then check in. We are on day 12. It is almost time to get these guys harvested. Definitely seeing some differences, but we'll wait until we get to the full 14 days before making any determinations. And I will zoom in and let's take a closer look. So this one was the broccoli where we didn't do anything, no humidity dome, just pop the seed pod in. This next one was the one that had the humidity dome. This one was the one that was the blacked out humidity dome. And this sad little fellow here was the one that was weighted. And then moving over to the lemon basil, this was the one that had no humidity dome. And honestly, it's come back better than I thought it would, considering what it looked like when all the gel dried up on the seeds. This beauty here is the one that did have the humidity dome. This one here was the one that had the blacked out humidity dome, and womp womp. This little guy here is the one that was weighted. It actually seems to be doing better than the broccoli that was weighted. So that's what we're dealing with. We'll give it a couple more days. I'd said 14, but we'll see where we're at. May even let the basil go a little bit longer because it had said 17 days. I'd intended to harvest the broccoli on day 14, but we have found our way to day 17 due to holiday craziness. And so the broccoli is a little bit further along than what I would have liked for harvesting it. And then we will weigh what is coming out from each of the different methods that we tried to see which one has the most. Now visually I can see pretty much the same thing with both of them over there, but we will get some data on it and actually show you the difference. Some things recouped better than others, and there was one little surprise. I'm going to be harvesting with these lovely little pruners. I love these ones. I'll put the link to them in the description. So visually for both the broccoli and for the lemon basil, the ones that did the best were the ones that had the clear humidity domes, which is perfect because that is exactly what Rise Garden tells you to do, which is nice. But you know, we got to test things out, because if we don't test them out, we're not going to know if there's better ways to do things. All right, so that was the one that had no humidity dome. That one had the clear humidity dome. That one was blacked out. And that sad little guy over there was the one that was weighted down. I actually thought the broccoli would recover better once I took off the weights, and it really didn't. So we go over to the lemon basil in the back. That was the one that had nothing. That was the one that had the humidity dome. That was the one that had the blacked out humidity dome. Those are the weighted ones. And these guys actually recovered better than I thought. Even with the basil, I'm seeing the biggest amount on the one that had the clear humidity dome. But we will get those onto my scale and then see what we have. So we will go and chop these guys all down. I'm going to make sure I grab them all. We will then bring them over to the scale. I think these are too light to even register. Okay, we're going to need a different scale. So we are back with a new scale, and we will see what we have. Let's try and make sure it's all on there as I struggle. We are at 2 grams. So next we are going to do these ones. These are the ones that were grown with just the humidity dome. Okay, so we've got those. And I don't even know if we're going to be able to stack all these on here. 9.9. Oh, 9.89. Okay, so definitely a lot more for those ones that were grown with humidity dome. Now we'll do these ones that had the black humidity dome on them. Get those onto the scale. This is not going to be an exact science by any stretch of the imagination. 4.82. So actually, visually it looked like they were closer, but now that I have them cut and laid on the desk, which I'll show you guys in a second, you can definitely see the difference. And now these guys, I don't even know if these guys are going to register, but we will give them their shot. Literally, that's all we got. And we're coming in at a 0.16. So just to show you guys on the table here. So that was no dome, dome, blacked out dome, sad little weighted guys. And now we have to get to harvesting and weighing all of that lemon basil. All right, so the next one that we are going to cut out is going to be this one on the end for the lemon basil, which is the one that had no humidity dome, just the pod popped right in there. Okay, really could use an extra hand, so that's those guys. And honestly, this lemon basil smells amazing. And the first for the lemon basil, trying to get it all on there. Oh, we've got a few escapees. No cover, we have 3.69 grams. For me, I would probably do the lemon basil over the broccoli next time. Just a personal preference. Next we have this guy, which was the one that had the humidity dome. All right, let's get this guy out and pop him onto the scale. Again, trying to get it all on there. And for that one, we have 8.39. Next is that guy, the blacked out humidity dome. All right, dropped a bunch of that. Very hard to get it all on there. 4.94. And now for the last guy who recovered better than the broccoli, but way up, the weighted lemon basil. They're so piddly. 0.56. Well, it did better than the broccoli, that's all I can say. After all that very non-scientific experiment, what can we say? Definitely the weighted was the worst. I have seen people swear by this online for the regular microgreens, but at least in my attempt at it, the weighted did not work. And as I mentioned before, I actually shot this video before and then lost a bunch of the audio. And when I did it that time, I saw the same thing with the weighted. It just didn't help. If you have done weighted microgreens and you've seen a lot of success, let me know in the comments below. But at least for this and growing it in the Rise Garden, I do not think it is worth it. Another one that people had said was really great was the blacked out humidity domes. I mean, it came in second, right? Both the lemon basil and the broccoli. The second highest weight was on the blacked out domes. But again, it's not the winner. Then we go to the lazy way to do it, just popping in the pod like if you had space. And that one came in third for both lemon basil and broccoli. So at least they are being consistent. And that's why I wanted to do 2 different types of microgreens, just to see if I got the same results. So if you are just popping in some of these microgreens in spaces, it is definitely worth putting them into the nursery first, because this will give it that humidity, and then popping it in once they're started. And for the lemon basil and for the broccoli, the winner was definitely just the clear humidity domes, giving those seeds the best chance of germination, keeping that humidity up, and then taking them off to let them grow to their full potential. So while microgreens are not going to be something that I'm going to grow all the time, I would definitely keep some lemon basil for me on hand that I would pop in here and there if there's any openings, so that I can get that little pop of extra flavor and nutrients. And if you want to see some of the other tiny things that I love to grow in my Rise garden, you can check out this video over here.